The stars look different out here. Commander Jake Martinez pressed his palm against the cold metal of the observation deck and watched the alien constellations through the thick glass. 3 years into humanity's first deep space mission, and he still could not get used to seeing unfamiliar patterns in the darkness. The ship UES Horizon had traveled farther from Earth than any human vessel before it. They were alone in a vast ocean of space with only each other for company. "Commander, we have something on long-range sensors." Lieutenant Ben Clark's voice came through the communication system. Jake turned away from the window and walked toward the bridge. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor as he moved through the narrow corridors of the ship. Dr. Lisa Park was already at her station when Jake entered the bridge. She was staring at her screen with intense focus. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the standard blue science uniform that all researchers on the mission used. Jake had worked with Lisa for 2 years now, but he still found her dedication to her work impressive. She was one of the best xenobiologists in the human fleet and had volunteered for this dangerous mission without hesitation. "What do we have, Doctor?" Jake asked as he took his position in the captain's chair. The bridge was small but efficient, with 6 stations arranged in a circle around his central command position. Through the main screen, he could see the endless field of stars ahead of them. Lisa looked up from her instruments. 7 ships approaching from the port side. They are moving in perfect formation and using some kind of energy propulsion system I have never seen before. The readings are unlike anything in our databases. Jake felt his heart rate increase. This was the moment they had all been waiting for and dreading at the same time. First contact with an alien civilization, the mission planners back on Earth had spent years preparing protocols for this situation, but now that it was happening, Jake realized how inadequate all their planning felt. "Are they communicating with us?" he asked. Lieutenant Amy Foster at the communications station shook her head. "Nothing on any frequency we monitor, but they are definitely aware of us." Their formation changed when we appeared on their sensors. The alien ships grew larger on the screen as they approached. They were sleek and silver with no visible weapons or windows. Each ship was about the same size as the Horizon, but their design was completely foreign. They moved through space like schools of fish swimming through water with perfect coordination between all 7 vessels. "Commander, they are slowing down," reported Lieutenant Clark from the navigation station. "They are taking positions around us. It looks like they want to talk." Jake made his decision. "All stop. Power down weapon systems, but keep shields at full strength. Open all communication channels and broadcast our first contact message on all frequencies." The message they sent was simple. It contained basic mathematical concepts, images of Earth and humanity, and expressions of peaceful intentions. The linguists and diplomats on Earth had worked for months to create something that any intelligent species might understand. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. The alien ships maintained their positions around the horizon like points on a compass. Jake could feel the tension on the bridge as his crew waited for some kind of response. Then, without warning, all 7 alien ships began to glow with a soft blue light. "Energy surge detected," Lisa called out. "They are generating some kind of field around us. The readings are off the scale." Jake was about to order evasive maneuvers when the alien ships suddenly stopped glowing. Instead, a new voice came through their communication system. It spoke perfect English with no accent or emotion in the words. "Human vessel, you will prepare for boarding. Resistance is not advised. Your species has been evaluated and found to be of scientific interest to the Confederation. This is Commander Jake Martinez of the Earth vessel Horizon," Jake replied. "We come in peace seeking diplomatic contact with your civilization. We request permission to send a diplomatic team to meet with your representatives." "Diplomacy is not required," the voice responded. "Your biosignatures indicate you possess unusual energy patterns that may pose a threat to Confederation systems. You will be contained and studied. Prepare for transport." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They were all looking at him, waiting for orders. He had hoped their first contact would be peaceful, but it was clear the aliens had different. plans. Red alert. All hands to battle stations. Prepare for defensive action. But before anyone could move, the bridge filled with the same blue light they had seen around the alien ships. Jake felt a strange tingling sensation all over his body, and then suddenly he could not move. The light grew brighter and brighter until he could see nothing else. He heard Lisa call his name, but her voice sounded very far away. Then everything went dark. When Jake woke up, he was lying on a cold metal floor in a small room. The walls glowed with a soft white light, and there were no visible doors or windows. He sat up slowly and looked around. The room was completely empty except for himself. He tried to remember what had happened, but his memories felt fuzzy and unclear. "Commander Martinez, can you hear me?" Jake turned toward the voice. It was Lisa. She was in an identical room right next to his, but there was a wall of energy between them. The barrier looked like flowing water made of light. He could see through it clearly, but when he reached out to touch it, his hand stopped as if hitting solid glass. "Lisa, are you hurt?" Jake asked. "I am fine," she replied. "Just confused. The last thing I remember was the blue light on the bridge." "Where are the others?" Jake looked around their prison more carefully. The energy walls extended in all directions, creating perfect squares around each of them. Beyond Lisa's cell, he could see more cells stretching into the distance. Some contained other members of his crew, but they all appeared to be unconscious. "I think we have been captured," Jake said. "These must be holding cells on one of their ships." As if summoned by his words, a new figure appeared in the space between their cells. It was tall and thin, with pale gray skin and large black eyes. It wore a flowing robe that seemed to be made of the same energy as the walls. When it spoke, its mouth did not move, but they could hear its words clearly. "I am Zenthka, primary researcher for this sector of the Valerian Confederation. You are the first representatives of your species we have encountered. Your biology is most unusual and requires extensive study. We demand to be released immediately," Jake said, standing up. "We are explorers, not enemies. We came here seeking peaceful contact." "Peace is irrelevant," Zenthka replied. "Your energy signatures interfere with our neural networks. This makes you a potential threat to Confederation security. You will be contained here while we determine the extent of the danger your species represents." Lisa moved closer to the energy barrier separating her from Jake. "How long do you plan to keep us prisoner?" "Until our studies are complete," the alien answered. "The cells you occupy are adaptive containment fields. They draw power from your own bioenergy and grow stronger the more you resist. Escape is impossible. You will remain here until we decide what to do with your species." With that, Zenthka disappeared, leaving Jake and Lisa alone in their glowing prisons. Jake pressed his hands against the energy wall and felt a slight shock. Lisa was right there on the other side, but she might as well have been on another planet. They were trapped with no way to escape and no idea what the aliens planned to do with them or the rest of their crew. Jake had been awake for what felt like hours, but there was no way to tell time in their prison. The walls around them glowed with the same steady light, and there were no windows to show if it was day or night on the alien ship. Lisa sat cross-legged on the floor of her cell, studying the energy barriers with scientific curiosity. Even trapped, she could not stop being a researcher. "I have been watching the pattern in the walls," she said without looking up. "The energy flow changes every few minutes. It seems to be scanning us continuously." Jake paced back and forth in his small space. The cell was barely large enough for him to take 3 steps in any direction. Scanning for what? Bioelectric activity, brain waves, hormone levels, everything that makes us human. Lisa finally looked at him. "Jake, I think we need to accept that we might be here for a very long time. These aliens are not interested in negotiation." Before Jake could reply, Zenthka appeared again between their cells. The alien creature seemed to materialize out of the air like smoke taking solid form. Its large black eyes studied them both with the cold interest of a scientist examining. Insects! You have been conscious for 6 hours, Zenthka said. Your bio readings have stabilized. We can now begin the interrogation process. We already told you we come in peace, Jake said. What more do you want to know? Everything, the alien replied. Your species is unique among the 712 races cataloged by the Confederation. Your energy patterns are unlike anything we have encountered. Zenthka moved closer to Lisa's cell. You, scientist, will explain your reproductive processes. Lisa looked confused. Our reproductive processes? Why would that be important? All Confederation species reproduce through energy transfer or cellular division. Your method appears to be primitive biological mating. This creates unusual bioelectromagnetic fluctuations that our systems cannot predict or control. Jake felt heat rise in his face. That is none of your business. Everything about your species is my business now, Zenthka replied without emotion. Your primitive mating rituals may be the key to understanding why your energy signatures disrupt our neural networks. Lisa stood up in her cell. As a scientist, she was used to discussing biology in clinical terms. Human reproduction involves the joining of genetic material from two individuals. This process triggers significant neurochemical and bioelectric changes in both participants. Describe these changes in detail, Zenthka commanded. Lisa looked at Jake, then back at the alien. During mating, humans release large amounts of dopamine, oxytocin, and other neurochemicals. Heart rate increases, brain activity changes, and there are electrical discharges throughout the nervous system. The bioelectromagnetic field around mating humans becomes much stronger and more chaotic. Zenthka listened with obvious interest. These field fluctuations, how powerful are they? Very powerful, Lisa answered. Strong enough to interfere with sensitive electronic equipment. Some medical facilities on Earth have to shield their instruments when humans are engaging in reproductive activities nearby. The alien was quiet for a long moment. Jake could see it processing this information. Your cells are designed to contain any known bioelectromagnetic signature, Zenthka finally said. They adapt automatically to prevent escape attempts, but they are calibrated for Confederation species only. What does that mean? Jake asked. It means the cells have never encountered the energy patterns produced by human mating behavior, Zenthka replied. This is merely academic, of course. You cannot mate while separated by containment barriers. Lisa looked at Jake with sudden understanding in her eyes. Unless we could synchronize our bioelectromagnetic fields without physical contact, Zenthka seemed amused by this suggestion. Impossible. The energy barriers prevent all physical interaction. Without touch, your primitive mating process cannot begin. But human bonding is not just physical, Lisa continued. We form emotional and psychological connections that can synchronize our biorhythms even when separated. Heart rates, brain, waves, hormone levels can all align between bonded individuals. Jake stared at her. He was beginning to understand what she was suggesting, but it seemed impossible. Lisa, are you saying what I think you are saying? She nodded slowly. Human bioelectromagnetic fields can synchronize through emotional connection alone. If we could establish a deep enough bond, if we could truly connect on a psychological level, we might be able to generate the same energy patterns as physical mating. Zenthka moved between their cells again. You are suggesting that emotional bonding alone could produce the same bioelectromagnetic surge as physical reproduction? It is possible, Lisa said. Humans who are deeply connected often report feeling their partner's emotions, finishing each other's thoughts, even sensing when the other is in danger from great distances. The connection goes beyond the physical. Fascinating but irrelevant, Zenthka replied. Even if such a connection were possible, you are strangers. You have worked together professionally, but you lack the deep personal bond required for such synchronization. Jake looked at Lisa through the energy barrier. They had served together for 2 years, but Zenthka was right. They were colleagues, not lovers. They knew each other's professional abilities, but not their personal histories or deepest thoughts. However, Zenthka continued, this information is valuable for our research. We will monitor your attempts to form such a bond. It will provide useful data about human psychological processes. The alien disappeared again, leaving Jake and Lisa alone. They looked at each other across the barrier that separated them. What Lisa had suggested seemed like their only chance of escape, but it would require them to open themselves to each other completely. Jake, Lisa said softly, I know this is crazy, but I think it might work. Human bioelectromagnetic fields are more powerful than these aliens realize. If we could truly connect, truly bond on a deep emotional level, we might be able to overload their containment system. Jake sat down on the floor facing her. Lisa, we barely know each other outside of work. How can we form the kind of deep connection you are talking about in a prison cell? By being completely honest with each other, she replied. By sharing everything, our fears, our dreams, our deepest secrets. By becoming vulnerable in a way that most people never allow themselves to be. Jake thought about her words. It was their only chance, but it also terrified him. He had spent his whole adult life maintaining professional distance from his crew. Opening up completely to anyone went against every instinct he had developed as a commander. What if it does not work? He asked. Then we stay prisoners until the aliens decide what to do with us and our crew, Lisa answered. But if it does work, if we can generate enough bioelectromagnetic energy to overload these cells, we might be able to free everyone. Jake looked around at the other cells containing his unconscious crew members. These people had trusted him to lead them safely into deep space. Now they were prisoners because of his decisions. He owed it to them to try everything possible to get them home. All right, he said finally. Where do we start? Lisa smiled for the first time since they had been captured. We start by getting to know each other. Really know each other. Tell me about your childhood, your family, your fears. Tell me things you have never told another person. Jake took a deep breath. This is harder than fighting aliens. I know, Lisa replied, but it might be the most important battle we ever fight. Jake stared at the glowing floor of his cell for several minutes before he began to speak. Opening up to another person had never been easy for him. As a military commander, he had learned to keep his emotions locked away where they could not interfere with his decisions. But now their only hope of escape depended on him becoming completely vulnerable to the woman in the cell next to his. I grew up on a farm in Ohio, Jake began slowly. My father wanted me to take over the family business, but I always looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. When I was 12, I built a telescope from spare parts and spent every clear night watching the sky. Lisa listened carefully as she sat cross-legged on her cell floor. What made you decide to join the military instead of becoming a civilian astronomer? My younger brother Danny, Jake replied. His voice became quieter. He was killed in a transport accident when I was 18. The pilot made a mistake during landing, and Danny was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I decided that day I would never let poor leadership cost someone their life again. He looked up at Lisa through the energy barrier. That is why I became so focused on being a perfect commander. I never wanted to be responsible for losing someone the way that pilot lost my brother. Lisa felt something shift inside her chest. She could hear the pain in Jake's voice, and it made her want to reach out to him. I am sorry about Danny. Losing family is the hardest thing anyone can go through. What about you? Jake asked. Why? Did you choose to spend your life studying alien life forms that might not even exist? Lisa was quiet for a moment. Because I never felt like I belonged with human life forms, she said finally. My parents were both scientists, but they wanted a normal daughter who would get married and give them grandchildren. Instead, they got me, someone who spent her teenage years reading research papers and dreaming about discovering new species. leaned forward. I have never had a serious relationship, Jake. Every man I ever dated eventually got tired of coming second to my work. They wanted someone who would put them first, but I could not give up my research for anyone. Jake watched her face as she spoke. He could see the loneliness behind her professional confidence. So you came on this mission to get away from Earth. I came on this mission because it was the only place I thought I might find others who understood what it meant to sacrifice everything for discovery, Lisa replied. People like you who left their families behind to explore the unknown. They continued talking through what felt like hours. Jake told her about the nightmares he had after difficult missions and how he sometimes woke up calling out orders to crew members who were not there. Lisa shared her fear that she would spend her whole life alone because she could never love another person as much as she loved her work. As they spoke, Jake began to notice something strange happening. The energy walls around their cells seemed to flicker occasionally. The steady glow would dim for just a moment before returning to normal. At first, he thought it was his imagination, but then Lisa noticed it too. The barriers are reacting to us, she said with excitement. Our bioelectromagnetic fields are already starting to synchronize. Jake felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the alien technology. Listening to Lisa talk about her fears and dreams made him see her as more than just a colleague. She was brave and intelligent, but also vulnerable in ways she rarely showed others. Tell me about your biggest regret, Lisa said. Jake thought carefully before answering. I regret never telling my parents how proud I was of them. They were simple people who worked hard their whole lives to give me and Danny opportunities they never had. But I was so focused on proving myself worthy of those opportunities that I forgot to thank them for the sacrifice they made. Lisa wiped tears from her eyes. They knew, Jake. Parents always know when their children love them, even if the words are never spoken. What is your biggest regret? He asked. I regret never allowing myself to fall in love, Lisa answered without hesitation. I told myself it was because I had more important things to do, but the truth is, I was scared. Scared that if I opened my heart to someone, they would leave me like everyone else eventually did. The energy barriers flickered again, and this time, they both felt a strange, tingling sensation. Their heart rates were beginning to match each other. Jake could feel Lisa's emotions as if they were his own, and she could sense his thoughts before he spoke them. This is working, Lisa whispered. I can feel your presence in my mind. Jake nodded. The connection between them was growing stronger by the minute. What happens next? We go deeper, Lisa replied. We have to trust each other completely. No walls, no secrets, no fear of being hurt. Jake stood up and moved as close to the energy barrier as possible. Lisa did the same on her side. They were only inches apart, but the barrier might as well have been 1,000 miles wide. I am scared, Lisa, Jake admitted. Not of the aliens or being a prisoner. I am scared of caring about someone again. Every person I have ever cared about either left me or died. I do not know if I can survive losing someone else. Lisa pressed her palm against the barrier. Jake put his hand against the same spot on his side. They could not touch, but they could feel each other's warmth through the energy field. You will not lose me, Lisa said firmly. Whatever happens, we are in this together now. I promise you that. Jake felt something break open inside his chest. All the walls he had built around his heart began to crumble. I am falling in love with you, Lisa. I know it is crazy. We have been prisoners for less than a day, but I cannot help how I feel. Lisa smiled through her tears. It is not crazy. I am falling in love with you too. For the first time in my life, I found someone who understands me completely. The energy barriers around their cells began to pulse with a rhythm that matched their heartbeats. Sparks of electricity ran along the walls, and the steady glow became much brighter. In the distance, they could hear alarms beginning to sound throughout. The alien ship. The containment fields are overloading, Lisa said with wonder. Our synchronized bioelectromagnetic activity is creating energy patterns the system cannot process. Jake felt power flowing through his body unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was as if every cell in his body was vibrating with electricity. How much more do we need? Complete synchronization, Lisa replied. We need to become one consciousness sharing two bodies. Total emotional and psychological unity. Jake looked into her eyes through the pulsing energy barrier. Then let me tell you everything. Let me share every thought, every feeling, every dream I have ever had. They spent the next hour opening their hearts completely to each other. Jake told Lisa about his childhood fears and teenage insecurities. She shared her dreams of discovering new worlds and her terror of dying alone. They talked about their favorite foods, their worst embarrassments, their deepest hopes for humanity's future among the stars. With each revelation, the connection between them grew stronger. They began to finish each other's sentences and share the same thoughts at the same moment. Their breathing synchronized perfectly and their hearts beat as one. The energy barriers around them pulsed brighter and brighter as their bioelectromagnetic fields merged into a single powerful force. I can feel your love for me, Jake said in amazement. And I can feel yours for me, Lisa replied. This is what human bonding really means. This is what makes us different from every other species in the galaxy. The alarms grew louder as Jake and Lisa reached the moment of complete synchronization. Their bioelectromagnetic fields had merged into a single powerful force that pulsed through both their bodies like lightning. The energy barriers around. Their cells flickered wildly and sparks flew from the walls. In the distance, they could hear confused alien voices shouting orders in languages they did not understand. Now, Jake, Lisa said urgently. We need to push together, focus all our energy on breaking through these barriers at the same time. Jake felt the power flowing through his veins like liquid fire. He had never experienced anything like this before. It was as if his consciousness had expanded beyond his physical body and merged with Lisa's completely. He could feel her thoughts and emotions as clearly as his own. They placed their hands against the energy barriers and focused their combined will on breaking free. The walls between their cells began to crack like breaking glass. Bright white light poured through the fractures as the containment system failed catastrophically. The explosion knocked them both backward, but when the light faded, the barriers were gone. Jake scrambled to his feet and rushed to Lisa. For the first time since their capture, they could touch each other. He pulled her into his arms and felt the full force of their connection flow between them. We did it, Lisa whispered against his chest. We actually did it, but their celebration was cut short by the sound of more alarms. The energy surge from their escape had spread throughout the detention area. Other containment cells were beginning to flicker and fail. Jake could see members of his crew stirring to consciousness as their prisons weakened. We need to get everyone out of here, Jake said. He helped Lisa to her feet, and they ran toward the nearest cell containing Lieutenant Clark. The barriers around his prison were sparking and fading. Jake pressed his hands against the failing energy wall. Ben, can you hear me? Lieutenant Clark opened his eyes and struggled to sit up. Commander, what happened to the walls? Long story, Jake replied. Can you walk? Within minutes, they had freed most of their crew from the failing containment system. The alien detention area was in chaos as backup systems tried to compensate for the massive energy overload. Emergency lights flashed red, and the ship's automated voice repeated warnings in the alien language. Commander, what are our orders? Asked Lieutenant Foster as she helped a groggy crew member to his feet. Jake looked around at his 19 crew members. They were all weak from their imprisonment, but alive and ready to follow his lead. We need to get back to the horizon and get out of here. Lisa, do you have any idea where we are on this ship? Lisa was studying the architecture of the detention area. Based on the size and layout, I think we are near the center of their vessel. The horizon is probably in one of their docking bays toward the outer hull. Before they could move any further, Zenthka appeared in the corridor ahead of them. The alien's calm demeanor was gone, and it seemed agitated by the chaos around them. "You have damaged critical systems throughout this sector. How did you escape containment?" "We told you," Lisa said, stepping forward. "You underestimated the power of human bonding. Our emotional connection created energy patterns your technology could not handle." Zenth studied them both with its large black eyes. "Impossible. The bioelectromagnetic readings from your cells exceeded anything we have recorded from known species. No emotion should be capable of generating such power." Jake moved to stand beside Lisa. He could still feel their connection flowing between them like electricity. "That is because you have never encountered true love before. The bond between two humans who have opened their hearts completely to each other. Love." Zenth repeated the word as if tasting something foreign. "This emotional state produces such dramatic physiological changes." "More than you can imagine," Lisa replied. "And now that our crew is free, you are going to help us get back to our ship." The alien seemed to consider their demand. "The Confederation will not allow your vessel to leave. Your species represents too great a threat to our neural networks. The decision has been made to eliminate all humans before you can return to your home world." Jake felt anger surge through him, but also something else. The enhanced connection he shared with Lisa was spreading to include his other crew members. He could sense their thoughts and emotions as if they were all part of the same organism. "You made a mistake when you imprisoned us together," Jake said. "Human bonding is not limited to romantic pairs. We form connections with our friends, our families, our communities, and now that the barriers are down, those connections are spreading." Lieutenant Clark stepped forward. "Commander, I can feel what you are feeling. It is like we are all connected somehow." Other crew members nodded in agreement. The bioelectromagnetic field that Jake and Lisa had generated was acting like a network, linking all the humans on the ship together. They could communicate without speaking and coordinate their actions with perfect precision. Zenth backed away from them. "This is not possible. Individual consciousness cannot merge while maintaining separate identities." "That is where you are wrong," Lisa said. "Humans have been doing this for thousands of years. We call it teamwork, friendship, love. We maintain our individual selves while still connecting with others. It is what makes us human." The alien ship shuddered around them as more systems failed. The energy overload from their escape was spreading through the vessel's power grid, causing cascading failures throughout multiple decks. "The ship is losing structural integrity," reported Lieutenant Foster, who had always been good at reading technical systems. "We need to get to the horizon now before this whole vessel comes apart." Jake nodded. "Zenth, you are going to guide us to our ship. In return, we will take you with us when we leave. You wanted to study humans. Well, now you get a chance to see what we are really capable of." The alien hesitated. "The Confederation will consider me a traitor for helping you escape." "Then you better hope we make it back to human space where you will be safe," Jake replied. As they moved through the corridors of the failing alien ship, Jake marveled at how efficiently his crew worked together. They anticipated each other's needs and moved as a single unit without needing verbal commands. The bioelectromagnetic connection between them had enhanced their natural human ability to cooperate and coordinate their actions. They encountered several groups of alien crew members, but the Valerians seemed confused and disoriented. The neural network that connected their civilization was being disrupted by the human presence on their ship. Without their collective consciousness to guide them, individual aliens struggled to make decisions or take effective action. "Their entire society depends on shared consciousness," Lisa explained as they avoided another group of wandering aliens. "They have never learned to think as individuals the way humans do naturally." Finally, they reached the docking bay, where the horizon waited. The human ship looked small and fragile, surrounded by alien technology, but to Jake it represented safety and home. They had made it this far, but the hardest part of their escape was still ahead. Get everyone aboard, Jake ordered. Prepare for immediate departure. We are not staying here 1 second longer than necessary. As his crew rushed toward their ship, Jake felt a surge of pride and love for these brave people who had followed him across the galaxy. They had been captured and imprisoned, but they had not given up hope. Now they were free and stronger than ever because of the bonds they shared. The connection he felt with Lisa had grown into something that included all of them. They were not just a crew anymore. They had become a family, united by their shared experience and their love for each other. It was the most human thing possible, and it had saved all their lives. The Horizon's engines roared to life as Jake's crew prepared for the most dangerous escape of their lives. Through the docking bay's transparent walls, they could see the massive Valerian mothership breaking apart around them. Explosions lit up sections of the alien vessel as the cascade failure spread through its systems. They had minutes at most before the entire ship would be destroyed. "All systems online, Commander," reported Lieutenant Clark from the pilot's seat. "But we have 7 Confederation ships moving to intercept us. They are powering weapons and preparing to fire." Jake took his position in the captain's chair while Lisa strapped herself into the science station. Even in the chaos of their escape, he could still feel their deep connection flowing between them like a river of shared consciousness. The other crew members were experiencing the same phenomenon as the bioelectromagnetic field they had generated continued to link all the humans aboard the ship. "Zenthka, what can you tell us about those ships?" Jake asked their alien guide. The Valerian researcher was huddled in a corner of the bridge, looking lost without its connection to the Confederation's neural network. "They are destroyer-class vessels. Their weapons can penetrate any known defensive system. You cannot fight them directly." "Then we don't fight them," Lisa said from her station. "We show them something they have never seen before." Jake understood immediately. "Can you amplify our bioelectromagnetic field through the ship's communication array?" "Already working on it," Lisa replied as her fingers flew across the control panels. "If I can boost our signal and broadcast it on all frequencies, every being in this star system will feel what human consciousness is really like." Lieutenant Foster looked up from her station with wonder in her eyes. "Commander, I am receiving transmissions from the other Confederation species. They are not allied with the Valerians. Some of them sound like they are rebelling against the neural network." Through the view screen, Jake could see the 7 enemy ships approaching, but something strange was happening. Their perfect formation was breaking apart as individual vessels began to move independently. The bioelectromagnetic field radiating from the horizon was disrupting the collective consciousness that controlled the entire Confederation fleet. "It's working," Lisa said with excitement. "Our signal is reaching every ship in the area. The other species are breaking free from Valerian control." Suddenly, their communication system crackled with dozens of alien voices speaking in languages they had never heard before. But somehow, through their enhanced connection, the human crew could understand the emotional content of the messages even without knowing the words. "Freedom," whispered Lieutenant Amy Foster as tears ran down her face. "They are all saying the same thing in different languages. Freedom." Jake watched in amazement as the Confederation fleet turned on itself. Ships that had been allies for centuries were now facing each other as enemies. The species that had been suppressed by Valerian neural dominance were finally able to think and act as individuals. "This is incredible," Zenthka said from its corner. 600 years of Confederation unity dissolving in minutes. How is this possible?" "Because true unity cannot be forced," Jake replied. "It has to be chosen freely by individuals who decide to work together. What you called unity was actually slavery." The Horizon flew through the chaos of the disintegrating fleet as allied ships protected them from remaining Valerian forces. Species that had been enemies of humanity just hours before were now helping them escape because they understood what the humans had given them: the gift of individual consciousness and the freedom to choose their own destiny. Lisa worked frantically at her station to keep their bioelectromagnetic signal broadcasting across space. Jake, the field is getting stronger. I think it is reaching beyond this star system. Other human ships in the area might be able to detect it. As if summoned by her words, new contacts appeared on their sensors. 3 human exploration vessels were approaching at maximum speed, drawn by the powerful signal radiating from the horizon. For the first time since their capture, Jake felt hope that they might actually make it home. "This is Captain Ryan Stone of the UES Discovery," came a familiar voice over their communication system. "Horizon? What is your status? We detected some kind of energy surge from your position." "Discovery, this is Commander Martinez," Jake replied. "We have made contact with an alien confederation and triggered what I can only describe as a galactic revolution. We are heading home with critical information about human capabilities that Command needs to know immediately." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity as the human fleet regrouped and began the journey back to Earth. Behind them, the Valerian Confederation continued to collapse as species after species broke free from the neural network and declared their independence. What had been a unified galactic government for centuries was fracturing into dozens of separate civilizations. Lisa sat beside Jake on the observation deck as they traveled through hyperspace toward home. The stars looked different to both of them now. No longer were they alone in a vast, empty universe. They were part of something much larger and more wonderful than they had ever imagined. "Do you think Earth will believe what happened to us?" Lisa asked. Jake took her hand in his. The connection between them had settled into something warm and permanent that he knew would last for the rest of their lives. "They will have to believe it when thousands of newly independent alien species start showing up wanting to learn about human concepts like individual freedom and love." Through their enhanced bond, Jake could sense the emotions of his crew throughout the ship. They were all changed by what they had experienced. The bioelectromagnetic field that had freed them from the alien prison had also freed them from the isolation that so often trapped human beings. They were still individuals, but they were also connected in ways that made them stronger and more capable than they had ever been alone. Zenth Ka approached them in the observation lounge. The alien had spent days trying to understand what had happened to its civilization and how a single human emotion could destroy 600 years of Confederation control. "I have been studying your literature and history files," Zenth Ka said. "This concept of love appears frequently in your cultural records, but I still do not understand how an emotional state can generate such powerful physical effects." Lisa smiled at their former captor, who had become an unexpected ally. "Love is not just an emotion for humans. It is a force that connects us to each other and to the universe itself. When 2 people truly love each other, they become more than the sum of their parts. And when groups of people choose to love and support each other, they can accomplish impossible things, like escaping from cells that were designed to be unbreakable," Jake added. 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of Earth's newest space station, watching ships from dozens of different species arrive for the first Galactic Council of Independent Worlds. The revolution that had started with his and Lisa's escape from the Valerian prison had spread across known space as more and more civilizations chose individual freedom over collective control. Lisa joined him at the viewing window. She was now pregnant with their first child and wore the engagement ring he had given her after their return to Earth. Their connection had only grown stronger with time, and they both knew they would spend the rest of their lives exploring the galaxy together. "Our cell was escape-proof," Lisa said softly, as she watched alien diplomats arriving for the historic council meeting. "Unless we mated," Jake finished with a smile. They had proven that the most human thing of all was not technology or intelligence, or even courage. It was the ability to love completely and without reservation. That love had not only freed them from their prison, but had freed an entire galaxy from the tyranny of forced unity. As they watched the ships arriving, Jake realized that humanity had found its place among the stars not as conquerors or even explorers, but as teachers. They would show other species what it meant to choose connection over control, love over power, and individual freedom over collective slavery. The child growing inside Lisa would be born into a galaxy where humans and aliens worked together as equals, where different species could maintain their unique identities while still choosing to support and care for each other. It was everything they had dreamed of when they first left Earth, and more than they had ever dared to hope. Their escape from the Valerian prison had been just the beginning. Now, they had the rest of their lives to explore what it truly meant to be human in a universe full of friends.